an elevator and end up in another world.
And then the truck breaks through the stage.
All right, so after last night, some of us have a little more energy than others, but I think we can get through this. My name's Miles Gallup, but I'm probably better known as Plum Parrot.
Oh my God, that's who you are? I do know who you are. I really like your books. I had not heard of your real name, but like Plum Parrot, like, oh my God, I'm sitting with a celebrity up here.
Thank you. No, I'm small fry here. So, yeah, I think the best thing we can start out with is everyone introducing themselves. And maybe a little bit, like after you say who you are, how you can relate to isekai, which is the topic of this panel, if anyone forgot.
Yeah.
Hey, everybody.
It's on.
Okay. Hey, everybody. I am Drew Hayes, the author of several series, Superpowers, Villains Code, Rover Powered, 5-Minute Sherlock. And probably the most relevant to this one would be NPCs, since that's got a game world and a real world and a little bit of crossover between it. I guess, how do I relate to an isekai? I did kind of start my life over when I became a writer, I'll put it that way. And it is a progressive journey in which I both do feel like I'm leveling up, and yet somehow the plot's always padding, so nothing's ever changing.
I'm James Hunter. Usually I'm like the oldest veteran on the panel, but like Drew Hayes is like a super veteran. He's been doing this longer than anybody on the planet. I mean, he's basically just dust at this point, so I feel in comparison. But I've been writing books for a decade now, and in the LitRPG space for the past 9 years. I've written a bunch of books, like I think I'm up to 50 or something, a bunch of different series. I love this guy. It's super fun and convenient to put a modern character in a different world, because then you have this great like POV character who has no idea what's going on, so they can learn with the audience. In terms of like how do I relate to isekai, I would say most recently a building fire. I feel like that's a good transitionary point for an isekai character. I think I've seen that one before, so it's hitting close to home this morning, guys.
I'm Eric Euland. I write The Good Guys, Bad Guys, and some other books. And I guess I would say my connection to isekai is that I found it to be the easiest portal into LitRPG. It's just such an easy hook for readers to go into a new world.
So I'm Sean Oswald, and I've been writing for a little over 5 years, and at that time I've got 58 books, so that's a problem.
Yeah, thanks for making us all look bad, Sean.
My connection with isekai is really the book that I started writing came out of dreams that I was having. I was reading so much LitRPG and I kept thinking about being isekai, but probably because, life is tough, right? So we think about that at times. But in all of my dreams, my wife and kids came with me. So I didn't ever escape any of my responsibilities. So anyway, I guess that's my connection there.
Nikolai Ganella, I write Unbound, I've been doing it for about 5 years, about the same time as Sean. I've written way less, just 11 books. My connection to isekai, I mean, obviously that's the story I write, it is isekai. And it's just such a great way to introduce not just readers to the world, just like the world building itself. It's such a fun trope to play with.
All right, excellent. Thank you, guys. So, a little housekeeping I forgot. If you have luggage and you don't want to carry it around all day, you can store it in Torrey's Peak, which is next to registration. And I'm just supposed to let you guys know that. And then I'm also going to say that I'm going to ask questions for about 30 or 40 minutes, and then we'll open it up to the audience to ask questions. So if you have something on your mind, start getting ready. So I'll start with I have some kind of fun questions, and then some more serious ones. And none of them are really serious, so don't worry. But let's start with the elephant in the room. Why is Truck-kun still undefeated? Why is he the number one? I don't know, method for annihilating people and sending them to the world.
So there's this thing called the Kleenex effect, where at a certain point a brand's ubiquity supersedes the actual name of the product in itself. Truck-kun, I think, originated because it is Well, ubiquitous. Pretty much all of us interact with trucks in our daily lives. It's a very easy way to kill a character, and sometimes you can, throw a bit of heroism into it. Good old Yu Yu Hakusho. I still remember that one.
Woo!
And then the fact that it didn't matter just added a fun little extra sliver to it. But at a certain point, I think we had the Kleenex effect, where Truck-kun became self-subsisting in the sense of referentialness.
Yeah, and I think that like maybe early on, because you're right, you could accidentally step out into the street and get hit by a bus or hit by a truck, and like, it's a pretty easy way to kill off a main character. At this point, though, I think that you're right that it is self-referential, and it also kind of maybe pokes fun at the tropes a little bit, and kind of like points out the suspension of disbelief that I got another character getting sent off as a guy to another world, and I think there's a little fun in that. It's a little tongue-in-cheek way of saying like, hey, like, we don't know what this is, we know what we're getting into. If you start a story with a character getting truck-kunned, you kind of know what you're getting in for, and I think that that's a great way as a tool for an author to set the expectation. At the same time, if you're writing like a serious grimdark isekai story, maybe not the best way to start off your story, but I think that knowing sort of where it fits in the genre, where it fits tonally, as a writer, that can be a really easy shorthand to let readers know right up front exactly what they're getting into, whether or not they're going to enjoy it, or whether like, nope, I already know this is not for me from like page 2, and they can put it aside. So I think there's a lot of great ways that you can use that as a writer in storytelling to kind of forecast what's in store for your readers.
I mean, are you meaning like literally using Truck-kun as the isekai device?
I don't know, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I think like from that perspective, then I agree completely with what James said. It is then, at this point, is telegraphing the style of book you're using.
I think, go on. If you guys have more to add, please, but I understand this is kind of a limited question.
No, I believe they've covered everything that they're saying, that there is to say about it, I think.
All right, thank you. That was a good discussion on tropes. The reason I asked it is maybe because I didn't use, like when Victor went into a new world, he got summoned. Like I didn't want to kill him, so maybe I was just too fragile toward my character.
For those who haven't used isekai, have you killed characters to get them in, or is it always like a something gone awry type thing?
Sorry.
Well, for me, it's a summoning. It's a big bolt of lightning, and then they're off, and then a mystery kind of why.
It's been technically both.
Yeah.
Because in all the guys, they are in the process of dying. They are essentially chosen / summoned.
I mean, I've had a card right through a portal. I've had people be summoned. I had a war god hide on Earth and kill somebody else to send him back in his place. So, different ways. Never a truck villain.
I've never done that direction of Portal Fantasy. My NPC series is a little bit more, they're trying to figure out what the connection is, so nobody's directly crossed over yet.
I think I've killed like most. There's a couple of series where the MC, when they're isekai, is not killed, but usually they die in pretty grisly ways. There's like one that's kind of tongue-in-cheek. It's more similar to Truck-kun, where a guy buys a retro GameCube from a pawn shop, and it's a mimic that eats him and sends his soul to him. But other ones are like really serious, like guy dies in the Battle of Fallujah in this weird old temple, and the blood fuels this ritual that transports him and reincarnates him. So, man, I did not realize that this was an ongoing theme until right now, and now I'm gonna have to reconsider some choices.
No, that was great. You guys took that kind of small question and ran with it. Let's talk about another trope. Why do you think overpowered protagonists are a staple in isekai?
Because they're very fun.
Eric.
Yeah, excellent, thank you.
Overpowered characters are very fun. It's always interesting to see them do. Well, one of the things I see a lot and that progression fantasy LitRPG does really well is having a character sort of flex their capabilities, and that's extremely cathartic, extremely satisfying for readers. I know as a reader, for me, it was. So it's really fun to set those up with an OPMC. It's obviously easier to do that. The challenge obviously comes when you have to challenge the OPMC. That gets more critical.
I mean, I agree with that in the sense that some of us are reading, as I said before, to escape. It's not necessarily that we hate our lives, but, you know, I just paid the bills. Now I'd rather read something that's completely disconnected from that. And OPMC makes that easy because we get to self-insert in a way and be that person and be the person for whom the challenges are easier. Now, at the same time, as the author, we have to make sure that we show you the main character earning the OPMC, and there have to be challenges for them. And then there has to be a pacing, again, like Nikolai was saying, where they get to flex. They don't get to flex every chapter, but there need to be those moments where, you know, they've restrained themselves, like, okay, now I'm cutting loose. And I mean, when I have a chapter like that on Patreon, you know, people are just, yes, more. So I know that it resonates with people.
I think the boring answer is that this is escapism and people don't necessarily want to read struggle.
Thanks for calling.
Well, somebody had to, all right? And I was actually lying. But I think that like, there's a deeper thing to it, and I think there's a decided sense of lack of control in contemporary life, and I think that people don't want, they want to break from that. And when you have an overpowered MC, that gives them the chance to like live vicariously and actually see the change happen that they would want to have. But I will say that there's you know sort of new niches that are happening where you have overpowered characters who don't earn it, and there is this sort of joy in watching that as well. You know, obviously, heretical fishing is one of the best examples of that. No point has he earned any of the superpowers he has, but it's a joy nonetheless.
Yeah, I think that Eric's right, and that really what it boils down to is probably agency. There's a lot of readers who may feel like they don't have a lot of agency in their own life, and OPMC is the exact opposite of that. They have all the agency. They can bend the world to their whims, and I think that if that's a thing that you feel like you're lacking for whatever reason, when you're looking for escapism, you want something that's going to scratch that very specific itch. I don't feel like I have control of my own life, but this guy has control of everyone's lives, and so that's kind of the flip side of the coin. And it can be really fun to see him flex, especially if it feels earned. But I also think that as long as these books have been around, there have been OPMCs. They just show up and they have the god tier cheat for some reason in the rare bloodline, and also they're just like, yeah, you're kind of a loser, but you're the favorite of the gods, and you're like, we're gonna give you god power, and that can be fun too. Admittedly, for me, in limited doses. Sometimes I like writing or reading that. I hate writing it. I feel like it's so boring to write that because you can hand wave away literally every problem that the character has. There are some subversions of this trope. I think One Punch Man does this really well, where this guy who's the most overpowered character in any universe, who can punch anything to death with one punch, gets constantly pitted against problems that he cannot punch his way out of. And I think that that's an interesting way to explore that trope as well. But I see that a lot less in LitRPG, although I would love to see more of it.
So I did write an overpowered protagonist. I can contribute on that one. And it is the unearned style that Eric mentioned. But it's meant to be sort of fun and whimsical, and it's a comedy, so I can kind of get away with that a little more. But one of the rules I do have for it is, as often as possible, the extreme amounts of power should be a detriment to what she's trying to do more than a help. Because that allows me to mine it for comedy rather than for the same hit a problem, smash through it, etc. I do want to touch on something that I think is very interesting about the overpowered protagonist, is that it allows us to cut out a certain amount of narrative inefficiency that exists inherently, because we all know that outside of very specific types of work, such as George R.R. Martin, your protagonist isn't going to die. Superman's not ultimately going to lose the fight that kills him unless it's a giant event and it's been forecasted for 650 Sunday. And the overpowered protagonist lets us cut that out. We don't have to all pretend that maybe there is some worry about that, and when it's used well, like One Punch Man's a great example, that allows the narrative to then put the focus elsewhere instead of pretending those stakes, so they get to create real stakes. So, will Saitama make it to the Sail on time? Now that's silly, but we also know for him and his budget, that's a very real ass stake. And that fight is not about will he win, it's about what is it going to cost him. How is the protagonist going to figure a way out? It allows us to be focused more on solutions and those unique kinds of fun and wish fulfillment in the time that you don't have to spend pretending that this is the struggle that's going to kill him, even though we're halfway through the novel? Come on.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, very nice. We've already, some of you already touched